Morning guys, how are you all doing today? So last night, or yesterday arvo, we arrived at the town of Mataranka. It's a pretty sleepy little town, not too much going on, but one of the big draw cards is this one here. This is Bitter Springs in the Elsey National Park, and come down nice and early this morning. It's so peaceful. It's kind of like a lazy river. You kind of just float on down really, really slowly. And then you get to the end, hop out and do it all over again. But today's probably the last day we're gonna be able to stop at any swimming holes here in the NT. So we're gonna make the most of it. These ones are really warm. I think they're about 32 degrees. So not the most refreshing, but still, how good? Just fogged the camera lens up. Alright, so we've just come back to camp and it is me gurung for breakfast, which we've been talking about for a few days, finally got around to making it. And yeah, this is one of a couple of campsites that are located really close to Bitter Springs. There's I think 3 within like 2 kilometers of the springs themselves. The one we're staying at is called Territory Manor, and we're really enjoying this spot because as you can see there is heaps of trees around, which is creating a lot of shade and a bit of welcome relief from the hot Northern Territory sun, but it's also quite lush. There's a lot of birds around, which is cool. Some of them are native, some of them aren't. There's like peacocks running around. Even saw some brolgas in the distance this morning, which was pretty cool. So yeah, not a bad spot to camp at all. So I've got 2 kind of funny stories to tell you. This place, obviously you can see, it's very green, very lush, not too dry, but I think part of the reason there's a bit of grass under us here is because there's sprinklers everywhere. Last night at midnight, this sprinkler behind me just shot straight into our tent, straight through the window. We thought we were under attack or just like this massive rainstorm would come in. We had all like the cameras, phones and stuff charging in the middle of the tent, just literally went straight through the window. I was able to come and turn that off. But another thing, you may recall yesterday I said we had no sleeping mats and we slept on the sleeping bags. Blind Freddy could have found those sleeping mats. We both had a look on the first day, couldn't see them. When we went to put the tent up yesterday, they were literally right there in front of us in the back of the vehicle. So we do have sleeping mats. Got that one wrong. And with that, I think it's time to hit the road again. So the next leg of the trip for us is from Mataranka to Daly Waters, which is about a 2-hour drive. There's not a whole lot to see or many places to stop at along the way. We're stopping at Daly Waters because there is an iconic pub. We've both been hanging out for a pub feed. It's a very iconic destination as you're making this trip from Darwin to Alice Springs. But we're also going to be able to pitch our tent there, which is really good. However, you can't really book a tent site or even a place to put a camper or a van prior to arriving. So we're just kind of arriving and hoping for the best. As far as I know, this time of year, you can more or less just rock up and you're going to be guaranteed a spot. And the same on the next day, we're going to be driving about 5 hours down to Karlu Karlu, also known as the Devil's Marbles. Again, you can't really book ahead of time as far as getting a site there. So we're just going to rock up and hope for the very best. So this probably isn't where you're expecting to see us this morning. You thought we were going to be waking up at the Daly Waters Pub, and to be honest, this time yesterday, so did we. But yesterday we decided to make a little bit of a change to the itinerary. We got to the pub, had a good feed. It was quite an interesting place, but there wasn't much going on for us there. So kind of looked at the time and thought we could make it all the way down to Karlu Karlu and camp there. So that made our total drive time yesterday about 7 hours, and we literally arrived here on sunset, just after sunset. So we're kind of setting up the tent in the dark, but I'm really glad we made it. We've been up for an amazing sunrise here this morning. Karlu Karlu is of course a traditional name for this sacred place. There's certain parts of this area that you cannot photograph just out of respect to the local people, which I think is so important to follow by those guidelines. As you can see, this place is just incredible. It's another one where the camera just doesn't do it full justice. So let me tell you about last night's camping debacle. So once we got here, as I mentioned, it was pretty late. It was like just on sunset. It was getting pretty dark pretty quickly. And we tried to pop the tent up and get the pegs into the ground, but this ground was literally rock solid. There was no way that the pegs were going in. So we kind of just had to use the guy ropes, tie up to the car, tie up to the tree here. We put our jerry cans in the corners so that we could try and hold as much form to the tent as possible. But as you can imagine, with this wind, half the night we're just waiting for the thing to collapse onto us, which fortunately it didn't. And we still had a pretty decent sleep despite all that. So my tip would be, if you're coming to Karlu Karlu with a tent, probably not your best bet. You're best off having a camper van or something like that where you don't have to pitch it into the ground. On with Alice Springs, eh?
Hey.
Let's do it.